At this point, we're going to transition more to our message, and we have an offering song prepared to just kind of set the stage and open our hearts and minds. So please just sit back and enjoy the offering song, and then we'll welcome up Pastor Mike to share the message today.
Troubles come and my heart burdened be, then I am still and wait here in the silence until you come and sit right with me. You raise me up so I can stand on my
I love finding new versions of that song. It's one of my favorite songs, and it's just amazing to me how much that song has kind of become so internationally well known. This is actually a children's choir from Ukraine, so they're singing in a language that's not even their own, but the song is so powerful in and of itself. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. My name's Pastor Mike. Thank you for coming today. Good morning. I'm going to be continuing our series on a season for growth, and the series is, I think this is what, the 5th message or so, and we've been really delving into this idea of growth, especially being in the springtime and seeing all of nature and the new flowers and the buds coming. It's a time for us. It's in my mind, an ideal opportunity to reflect on our own personal growth and where we're at in our life and where we want to be. But the reality is that sometimes we are at a place in our life and we want to be at a certain place, but we don't know how to get there. We don't know the areas in which we need to develop ourselves or to grow. So we really hope that through this series that there might be some moments of enlightenment, moments of inspiration, maybe moments of clarity, because growth is such an important part of our lives. And when we're not growing, it's very easy to just get and feel stuck. So today I'm going to be talking about, oh my goodness, the uncomfortable truth about growth. So our older daughter recently started riding a ripstick. Do you know what a ripstick is? It's that. So Stuart and Sammy gave it to us. I was over at their house a couple weeks ago, and he's like, hey, we never use this. Do you want to? I'm like, maybe, sure, we'll give it a try. The thing, it's very intimidating. It's kind of like a skateboard, but there's only 2 wheels. And the middle of it is not solid. It's not one piece. Both pieces move. And so that's kind of how you're supposed to use it, is by being able to use your feet to move the things back and forth and stay balanced on 2 wheels. So when I saw it, I was like, wow, that looks really dangerous. And I didn't think anybody in our home would try it or want to use it, but to my surprise, our older daughter right away, she's like, oh, I want to learn how to ride this thing. And I she got on there, and of course, whenever you try something new, it's going to be completely foreign, just like for any new skill. But she got on, and she was terrible, of course, at the beginning, but after a couple weeks, she was gliding around on it. It was amazing. And she took a pretty big spill last few days ago, so I don't think she's gone on since. But I was really, I don't know, I'm always amazed with kids, because kids, I think we take for granted knowing how to do basic fundamental things, like drive a car, know certain facts about science and math and reading and all these things. But they're really starting from scratch, and we all did, but we probably don't remember. But they're starting from scratch, and in a lot of ways, they're very fearless in their desire to want to learn and to gain new skills, because they need them in order to be able to, operate normally in this world. But as an adult, when I looked at the ripstick, I was like, nope, no way. Like, I know what's going to happen, and I could become good at riding the ripstick, but am I really willing? Because as an adult with 36 years of experience, I'm trying to remember my age, 36 or 37, one or the other, I look at that and I'm like, well, if I want to become good at this, I'm going to have to expect that I'm going to fall off a few times, probably going to get bruised up. It's going to look pretty ridiculous, and for what benefit? What's the benefit I'm going to get out of this? Maybe a little bit better, coordination, maybe the ability to look cool in front of other people by riding this thing around. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, it's not worth it. There's no way. I'm not going to do any of that. So in some ways, being older, we're able to see things from a different perspective. We're able to see things from a broader perspective than maybe our kids. But at the same time, that's not a bad thing, but sometimes it limits us in our ability to want to try new things and our ability to want to try to get our hands dirty sometimes. And I think especially sometimes as adults, we don't want to go through the process of being bad at something in order to be able to get good at something, to be able to be good at something. So in a life of faith, this can manifest itself in our lives in many ways as well. And maybe at some point in our life, we realize that in our life, we're not really manifesting the fruits of the Spirit. We talked about the fruits of the Spirit before, how when we're living a life of faith, you expect certain things to manifest in your life. Things like compassion, patience, generosity, forgiveness, faithfulness, kindness. And so as adults, we don't, when we come to a point in our life where maybe we recognize that I'm not where I want to be, it's easy to look at that situation and be like, kind of like the ripstick, like, oh, I can see that there would be certain benefits to learning to do this, or there'd be benefits to growing or trying to develop myself or grow myself as a person, but I'm not sure if I want to go through what it takes to get there. I don't know if I want to go through the pain. I don't know if I want to go through the discomfort. I don't know if I want to go through maybe the bumps and bruises, or maybe some of the nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. And there's a lot of fear that comes along with that, to be able to overcome that and accept the fact that maybe some people aren't going to understand where we're going to come from. Maybe some people might judge me. Some people may not understand what I'm trying to do. That can be a really hard thing. The bruises are not literal when it comes to a life of faith and trying to grow myself as a person. They're not going to be literal most of the time. They're going to be like internal bruises. It could be embarrassment. We want to look good to other people in our life. We want to act like we have our life all together. So letting people see, or admitting and showing people in our life that we don't have our life together, that there's some areas of my life that I want to work on, that there's some areas of my life that I'm not proud of, is not an easy thing to do. It can be very embarrassing. We want to maintain a certain image of ourselves in the lives of the people that love us and that we love. Maybe we have shame that we feel like we should have figured out our life by now. We're at a certain place in our life and feel like, well, I should have my life figured out by now, but maybe you don't. And I think that there's a lot of fear too of trying to embrace something new, trying to embrace some growth in your life. Fear of failure, fear of regret, fear that, if I admit that I'm wrong about something, that I'll be accused or it'll be used against me in some way. But we have to recognize that growth, even if it's uncomfortable, is a part of our life. The Bible says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And in the song, I don't know if you caught this one line in the song, it said, there is no life without its hunger. So, growth, whether we like to admit it or not, or whether we want to believe it or not, is a part of our life. It's a part of what makes us feel alive. Not just being alive in terms of living and working and making ends meet from month to month, but of experiencing excitement in life. It's a big part of it. So the uncomfortable truth about growth is that growth requires us to be uncomfortable at times. If you aren't uncomfortable, then chances are you probably aren't growing. But at the same time, that's not enough motivation for us to grow. Is there anyone here who feels inspired about growing and becoming uncomfortable for the sake of growth? No, and that is not abnormal, I think. There are people who are like that. I have a friend in the East Coast, and he was sharing some post on Facebook about how he had read this book, and there's this kind of movement of people. I don't know the name of the group, but their focus is to intentionally make their life uncomfortable. Okay? They take cold showers. They purposefully park far away from the store so that they have to walk further. They do all kinds of things like that, things that we normally try to, we try to look for comfort, take a nice warm shower, nice warm bath, park close to a place or whatever. They purposely try to make their life more uncomfortable. And I can sort of respect, I respect that, definitely, but I think that most people, that would be a very hard way to live your life, long term. Maybe you could do it every once in a while or something like that. But most of us are not interested in growth and becoming uncomfortable just for the sake of growth. And I think most of us don't seek for discomfort in our life. And if anything, we try to escape the discomforts of our life because there are so many of them. People in our lives we don't get along with, situations in our workplace or in our relationships that are stressful. Maybe when we look at the world and we see the world of politics or social issues, we just many times want to get away from it all. I've been there. I can totally relate with it. So what is it that actually can make a difference in our life where we actually not just feel like we should grow or, if I'm not uncomfortable, I should be uncomfortable, otherwise I'm not growing, so I should try to grow in some way. It's like that doesn't give us power. That doesn't give us a passion to want to become a better person, to want to confront our shortcomings, to confront the areas in our life maybe that we feel need work. Growth, and I think that the reason for that is because that growth is not the goal. Our goal in life is not to grow. Our goal in life is the growth is a byproduct of our goal, of the vision that you have for your life. If you have a vision for your life that you want to be, a very successful business person, then in order to get to the point where you can be a successful business person when you're not a successful business person is going to require you to grow. It's going to require you to learn what it takes to manage money. It's probably going to require you to learn what it takes to manage people. And it's probably going to require you to develop a broader perspective than maybe you had from the beginning. If your goal in life is to be an amazing father or a mother or a husband or wife, then you're on that path of that journey, there's going to have to be a lot of growth because nobody is born that way. In fact, we learn lots of things in life that bring us the other direction. Bad habits and things that we learn from our own parents that don't really help us in that journey. So whatever it is that you have a vision for in your life, on the journey of trying to accomplish that thing, then you have the opportunities for growth. There's a really cool quote. It's anonymous. We don't know who said it, but it says, "The real value of setting goals is not the recognition or reward, it's the person we become by finding the discipline, courage, and commitment to achieve them." So this leads me to the conclusion that in order for growth to happen in our lives, there's one key thing. Probably there's others too. Just talk about the one today. There's one key thing that we really need, and that is the C word. Does anyone know what it is? We've talked about it before. Commitment. Challenge is good too. Challenge basically goes hand in hand with commitment. So commitment. Commitment is a funny word because I think that especially today, commitment is something that a lot of people don't like. Commitment to marriage, commitment to, like absolute values. We all have commitments that we already make in our life. We have to pay our bills. We have to keep our commitments to our employers. We have to, there are certain things that we don't have much of a choice to commit to. But then, in the areas of our life that are really important, many times we don't want to be committed. And I think that that's something that we really need to visit. Marriage, for example, has the potential to be one of the most fulfilling things in our lives. It also has the potential to be the most painful thing in our lives. But no matter what our hopes and dreams are, it's hard. Adonia and I have been together for 16 years. I'm really bad with numbers these days. I think I can blame it on COVID. This last year has just been a blur. But we've been together for 16 years. And, sometimes couples come to us. I remember we had this one couple came to us a couple years ago, and they were newly married, madly in love. And they were like, I don't know what they saw in our family, but they just really wanted our advice. It was very humbling. I was like, we're doing our best, just like everybody. But they're like, no, give us your wisdom. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So one of the things that we try to tell all couples is that, especially when they're at that stage in their life, is we tell them, you're going to go through a period of time where you're probably going to hate each other. At the very least, you're gonna feel really stuck, because you're gonna feel like this person doesn't understand you, they don't appreciate you, or there's things about them that bother you. Once this period of time passes, because that experience of being in love with each other is not going to last forever. It's emotion. And you're going to go through a period of time where you're going to struggle with each other. And the husband was like, I don't know if I can believe that. So I was like, well, you don't have to, but, just file this away somewhere in your back of your mind. Maybe you will, just defy all relationship laws. But I said, probably not. There'll probably come a time where you really struggle with each other, and you need to find something deeper in your relationship than just the things that you like about each other, because at some point those will all get thrown out the window, and there'll be a point where you're looking at your wife, or you're looking at your husband and be like, I don't like anything about this person. And you're going to have to dig deep, and you're going to have to look for deeper things that you didn't see before, different ways to appreciate things, and also to look at yourself. Why don't I appreciate this or that about this person? What is it in me that is not able to love this person for who they are? Or what is it in me that's not able to see what God sees in this person? And we really have to ask ourselves, what does God love about this person? How do I see from God's perspective about this person? What are their good traits that I'm not seeing? And if you don't have commitment, it's not worth it. It's not going to feel worth it, is what I mean. It's not going to feel worth it, because it's very hard. It's a very hard process to go through. And in our 16 years of marriage, we've been through it a number of times. And it's not easy, it's not comfortable, but it's a very it's an incredibly growing experience. And then you have the experience with your kids. You have your experience with your kids, and you have to learn to see your kids from God's perspective. You have to learn to appreciate the things about them. And every kid is different. And I've shared with you before, like our youngest one really pushes me to be able to see what God sees in her. I mean, don't get me wrong. She's sweet. She's lovely. But I sometimes get really frustrated with her She's so strong-willed. And I feel like I could just, I could just do what, you could just do what many people do and just be like, well, I'm the parent and they have to conform to me. I'm the one who works and makes the money and has the experience and blah, 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 blah. But I think that God really designed the family experience to be where we actually, through those relationships and through seeing our own shortcomings with our kids and with our spouse, and also learning from our kids, natures and characters, and just like I said, how Mia wanted to learn to ride the rip stick. We learn, we grow if we are willing to use those experiences as growth experiences. But commitment is such an important aspect of that, because without the commitment, it's very easy to just be like, I'd rather try with somebody else. I'd rather not have to deal with this situation. We can get into some pretty challenging circumstances in our life, and it's much easier to just try to escape from them. So having that commitment, having that vision for our life helps us to stay the way. The divine principle says that after the fall of Adam and Eve, God committed to restoring his children. God committed to doing whatever it took to restoring his children back to the original ideal that he had for them in the beginning. And so ever since then, God has been working faithfully and unconditionally and patiently, many times behind the scenes without any recognition, enduring people saying, God, I hate you. God, where are you? But he's been doing everything that he can do to bring his children back to, and it's been a long, long, long journey, and we're not even at the end yet. I've spent a lot of time reading church growth books, as you can imagine, as a pastor. And one of the things that I've kind of identified as being a very common theme is that a lot of these authors will say that if a church is not growing, then it's usually because somewhere deep down inside, they don't want to go through the growth necessary for the change necessary for the growth to happen. And I think that we often find ourselves in that place in our life too, where we know we want growth, we know we want something more in our life, but it's really hard for us to get ourselves in the place where we're willing to make the changes in order to make that growth happen. So then, you need to ask yourself, we need to ask ourselves, what am I committed to in my life? What am I striving for? What am I working towards? When we're clear on our commitments and difficult situations come or opportunities for growth come that help us to get to that commitment, whatever it is, then it's a no-brainer. This past week was kind of a whirlwind. It was a crazy week. And, we were in the process of trying to figure out what we want the school to look like next year. So this year it was a co-op. Next year it's we want to turn it into an Acton Academy, which if you haven't heard of an Acton Academy, you will, because it's going to be the next Montessori. Just this last year, they had applications for 18,000 new schools around the country. Sorry, I keep thinking 1,000, but it is. I guess my mind doesn't even go 18,000. And we had a lot of discussion and trying to figure out how we're going to make this happen because it's a big undertaking. And so, but Adonia went to the one other Acton Academy here in Colorado, and she took a tour, and she walked around, and we're like, how are we going to make this happen? We felt kind of stuck. Actually, I'm not going to go into the whole story, but we felt stuck. But she went there and she saw what the experience was like for these kids. And she said to herself, we're so close. How can we not do this for our kids? We want our kids to have this experience. So she came back, and we weren't expecting any of this. And she's like, I want to do it. I want to take the lead on this. I'm at a place where I'm just willing to do whatever it takes to get there. But that's just one piece of the equation. It's just one small aspect of the thing, because just that in itself seems like kind of a big deal. But from the broader perspective of the vision that we have for our lives and the vision that we have for our church, it's a no-brainer. Because when an opportunity comes along that helps us to accomplish the vision that we have for our family and the vision that we have for this community, then you can spend time weighing the pros and cons, whatever. But at the end of the day, if that thing is going to help us to accomplish our goal in life, our vision in life, then you just do it. It's not a struggle. It's only a struggle if you don't know if it's worth it. But if you know what you want, then even if it's a challenging decision, it won't be a difficult decision. So Adonia is like, are you okay with this? I'm like, yeah, sure. We'll pay for that later, though. It always happens that way. A hard decision comes along. For example, like a few years ago when we were coming up to our 3-year mark as pastors, and we were talking about, do we really want to do this long term? Because originally when we came here, it was a short-term decision. It was like, we'll try this. But then making the decision to do long-term actually wasn't that hard. Now, if you sit and you think about it and weigh all the pros and cons, you could do that forever. But when you think about it from the perspective of what do I want for my life, then it wasn't a hard decision. But it doesn't mean that later on you're not going to go back and be like, I don't know if that was the right decision. It's like, what was I thinking? But sometimes you just have to take a leap of faith. Sometimes you just have to make the commitment if you recognize that it's going to help you to get to where you need to be in your life. So, a commitment wouldn't be a commitment if it didn't require us to be something more than what we are in order to achieve it. It wouldn't be a commitment if it didn't require some extra leap of faith. It wouldn't be a commitment if we knew exactly what the outcome was going to be and we could control the outcome. And sometimes it's just better that way. We like to control our lives. We like to know how things are going to turn out. We like to be like, it's kind of like being the adult and looking at the ripstick and being like, well, I know what that's going to look like, and I don't think I really want it. But sometimes it's better to just be the kid and to just see something that you want and you just go for it. You can say the same thing about, I think that, for those of you who are parents, if you look back on all the years of when you had kids and you added up all the time and energy and all the experiences you had to go through to raise those kids, then I think that some people, maybe many people, would, if you knew ahead of time before you had kids what that was going to be like, then I don't know if anyone would have kids. But we have kids because of the vision, have kids. I want to pass on my legacy. I want to be able to why do people have kids? Just to love somebody, to create the next step in your relationship, husband and wife, bringing a new life into the world that resembles both of them, and a new beginning. I mean, there's so much beauty there. But if we stopped and thought about all the things that it was going to take to be able to raise that child through the baby years and the diapers and the spitting up and all the food and then the teenage years, which we haven't even hit yet, then you might have second thoughts. And I think it's the same way with anything meaningful we try to do in our life, whether it's starting a business, getting married, changing jobs. I think just about anything meaningful in our life requires us to go through stuff. It requires us to go through growth in order to be able to become the person that can be successful at doing that thing. So this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. We talked about growth, and we talked about environment, we talked about nourishment, we talked about the planter, we talked about seeds, we talked about all these things. But the one thing that none of those things can really provide is your personal decision. You have to decide to commit. You have to decide to grow. You have to decide that you want it. Because without that, none of those other things are going to make it happen. It's the commitment, it's the decision, it's saying to God or saying to yourself or saying to your partner, I want this, I want a better relationship, I want this in my life. That is like the roots. We've been talking about planting a lot, right? And we talk a lot about, we didn't talk about germination so much. We didn't talk about how before the plant even comes to the surface, they have to send the roots down into the ground. Without that, the plant can't survive. But that is like the discomfort of the plant. You have to send the roots down because I'm sure the plant wants to go up and get the sunlight, right? The warm, beautiful sun and get the pollination from the bees. But first, the thing they have to do is they have to put their roots down. And I really feel like committing to things in our life, following through with those commitments, growing through that process is what is the roots. It's the roots of our life. It's what keeps us grounded. It's what is how we develop to be able to do bigger things in our life. Adonia and I, we used to really be into mushrooms a lot, especially when we lived in Missouri and mushrooms grow everywhere. And mushrooms are the most interesting. We went to a person's house yesterday, a couple days ago, and they're trying to create a mushroom business. And it's quite amazing. They have this whole setup in their house. But mushrooms are really interesting because mushrooms are basically all roots. They spread their fungi. They're the largest living organism, I believe. And they spread their fungi all around the forest floor and everything like that. When the conditions are right, then the fruits pop up. You get the delicious or sometimes deadly mushrooms. But it's the roots that allows them to be able to do that. It's the same with any living plant, any organism like that. So I want to just encourage you as I wrap up here that sometimes we look at the results in our life. Maybe we're not happy with them. Maybe we are happy with them, or maybe we're looking for something more. It's easy to just look at the thing that we're unhappy about. But I really want you to think about, what am I committed to in my life? What do I really want for my life? If you're not sure, then that's really the place to begin. That's really the root of where we get energy. That's the root of why do I get up in the morning? It's not just because I have to go to a job or whatever. What am I working towards? What do I want in my life? And then don't really stress too much about all the other stuff. Focus on that. I want to share this quote from our founder, Reverend Moon. He said, "A life of faith is not aimless. A life of faith is like gathering the equipment required to climb a mountaintop, the summit of the highest peak. Hence, when faced with an obstacle, we should not make a detour around it. Instead, we should proceed through the obstacle. When faced with hardships, we should determine not to give up and be ready to face even greater difficulties. With an indomitable spirit, we should strive to discover the subjective self that can digest all difficulties." And then lastly, from Colossians, "Let your roots grow deep down into him, and let your lives be built on him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness." Please join me in prayer. Good morning. Heavenly Parent, we thank you so much for this day where we could all come together. We're so grateful to be able to have this family of faith, Heavenly Parent, this community. I really pray that we can take the message to heart this morning, each and every one of us, myself too, to look at what am I committed to in my life, how do I grow myself to really reflect a person that is like you, that really reflects your character and your nature to the people around me and to this world. Heavenly Parent, we know that you are desperately needing in more people like that, Heavenly Parent. When you look at this world, there are so many problems, so many ills, so much suffering. And we know that we can't solve all those things in a moment. But Heavenly Parent, at the very least, we can strive to resolve those issues within ourselves and within our families and our community, Heavenly Parent, please. And through that process, Heavenly Parent, we know that you will guide us to do bigger and better things. As we grow and as we develop and as we hone our commitments, Heavenly Parent, please allow each and every one of us to become clear on what it is that we are trying to accomplish in our lives and what we hope for, what we are striving for. Heavenly Parent, please guide us, please lead us, please direct us, each and every single one of us. And also this community, Heavenly Parent, please guide it to be what you want to see. Please guide it to be what you want it to be, Heavenly Parent. We're just a small group of people, but we also have big dreams. And we know you have big dreams and you have many needs, Heavenly Parent. So please allow us to be of use to you. Please allow us to be a community that gives you inspiration, that makes you proud. And we will do our best with all our limitations, with all our shortcomings. We will do our best, Heavenly Parent. We really want to. We want to inspire you. We want to give you hope, Heavenly Parent. And I pray, Heavenly Parent, that you can just guide us. Please, even if we have to humble ourselves, admit that we're wrong at times, become better versions of ourselves. It's the journey that we all have to take. Heavenly Parent, please bring healing into our lives, into our families. We know that your love is always there for us and always there for our families. We need to invite it in. We need to bring it in. We want you to be a part of what we're doing, Heavenly Parent, each and every single one of us. I really believe that sincerely. And we just thank you for the opportunity that we can be here together, listening and focusing our lives on our week, on you. Please allow that to carry over into all other areas of our life. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick, Blessed Central Family. Amen and adieu. Thank you so much.